on Team we can have nicknames, and we give them to each other, and someone gave me the nickname Level 6 Network called Deathbringer, which is pretty close to what I do. So all I do is performance and resiliency, so I'm all about removing calls to databases or things like that and making things faster and making things more resilient and more fault tolerant in the face of failure. So that's the kind of stuff that I work on day to day. I use Atom to work on everything that I work on, which is what I'm going to talk to you guys about today. Hackable, as he said, hackable text editor. Thanks for stealing my line. My whole first slide is moot. A hackable text editor for the 21st century. And I use this day to day, and there's things I love about it, there's things I hate about it. I'm probably just going to talk about the love tonight. I might mention the hate a little bit, and so I'm going to go through the 3 parts that make it hackable, text editor-ish, and 21st century-ish. Both new words that I just invented. And so the first thing we're going to talk about is the 21st century thing. And so I chose the lovely Open GitHub style Octocat. The hardest part about making this talk was choosing which Octocat to use on each slide. So I just want you guys to know that I did put a lot of thought into which one is critical. So what makes Atom a 21st century editor? That seems kind of like a weird statement. Like, we're all in the 21st century, we're all using editors, so why is one more modern than another one? I think what it is the fact that it's a desktop app, but it's actually built on web technologies. So if you know HTML, CSS, the DOM, JavaScript, things like that, you can customize your editor however you want. You don't need to know Python for like Sublime Text, if anyone uses that. You don't need to know C. You don't need to know what's the parenthesis one? The one that
Lisp.
Lisp. You don't need to know Lisp for Emacs. You don't need to. You can use the technologies that you're using most likely to build websites to hack your editor, and I think that's really cool. So that's like a big thing on what I think makes it a more modern thing. So this is an example of like what Atom looks like. So obviously, line numbers. There's tabs up top. Syntax highlighting, some code that's in there. All the code is from SpeakerDeck, which is one of our apps, and I'll actually be uploading the presentation there afterwards, and so you can get this later, so don't worry about that, because I know you guys are going to be hanging on every word. So what's cool is this is actually right inside of Atom. I just brought up Web Inspector and a console, just like you would do in Firefox, Safari, Chrome, or anything really. If you're working in a browser, you can see that there's literally an HTML document. There's a DOM, inside of that. There's all these kinds of things. There's a JavaScript console. You can type in any JavaScript you want, including the Atom, official API or other things. And you can literally right there, you can like make elements disappear and stuff. There's even a plugin called Asteroids that you can install you can use the arrow keys to move around. You can spacebar to shoot, and you can destroy like DOM elements from the page. It's really cool. Unfortunately, I installed it today and it didn't work. It worked like a month ago, so I couldn't show you it. But just imagine Asteroid and DOM elements. Another thing is Node.js. So he's going to talk about this in a little bit. But I make the joke web scale. But like JavaScript really is I would say, a lowest common denominator kind of programming language in that like there's a ton of people doing it. So if you start with like the base of like the most people programming in maybe a certain language right now, I wouldn't be surprised if it's like JavaScript. And obviously Node's a big part of that, client-side browser is a big part of that. But then it goes up from there and eventually it gets up to like, C and the hardcore stuff that some people do. So I think it's really cool that you have Node.js in your editor because you have the entire package system, so NPM, all that kinds of stuff, any package that exists out there. You can make web requests, you can do spawn processes. Anything that you can do in Node, you can do inside of Atom, inside of your editor to do whatever you want to do to hack it, which is really cool. Another thing that's great about it that makes it modern is the modular design. So there's about 50 core packages, but when I say core, they're not really like core. There's basically a very small light part that comes with Atom, and then there's 50-ish packages on top of that add all the functionality. Search and replace, go to a line, highlight a line, select a line, edit, stuff like that. And all these packages, if you don't like the way one of them works, you can just literally uninstall it, fork it on GitHub, change it to do whatever you want, reinstall it, and you've completely changed your editor. It's pretty powerful in that effect that like it's completely modular and chunked up into small pieces, and you can change any of those pieces however you want. So that's pretty cool too, I think. And then the last thing is it's actually a full-featured editor. It has not always been this way. I started using Atom when it was a whisper in the wind, and it was painful, extremely painful. Search was terrible, it was slow, especially in a project as big as GitHub.com. It was, I mean, you search and you wait, like you go get, like the joke where the two people are sword fighting on the chairs and they say their thing is compiling. That was basically like search or anything that was done inside of that. So I've worked through when it was not fully featured. I can say now it is fully featured. There are still obviously things that like it could do better, it could be faster, things like that. But it has a ton of features. So anything you're used to with a normal editor, file browsers, finding files, navigating around, search and replace, multiple panes, split panes up and down, horizontal, all those kinds of things, multiple cursors, multiple selections. I'm going to show a lot of this stuff, but it has all those things and it's pretty much ready to go. And just another quick example. So you can see over here, I get to use the laser pointer as well. The only time I use the laser pointer really is with my cats, but I decided, so I don't want you to start like chasing it and batting at the screen, so I'm just gonna put that out there now. But over here we have a tree view, which is really obvious, and you need that in an editor. You have a project, it has files in it and folders and stuff like that. You need to navigate around. So that's obviously in there. You have syntax highlighting. There's a couple things selected in here. I actually used like keyboard shortcuts to automatically select all of those rather than selecting them individually. There's find and replace. You can do it inside of an actual folder. You can do it inside multiple folders. You can have a regex to search, or regex if you pronounce it wrong. You can have case insensitive, sensitive replace, all those kinds of things. Tabs up at the top. Everything is kind of in it. It's ready to go. It's ready to use, and that's really nice. So despite it being hackable, being web technologies, and all that kinds of stuff, it still kind of comes ready to go, which is nice. So that's what makes it modern, in my opinion. There's probably other things, but that's what I think. So what makes it a text editor? Well, I feel like there's like a base set of features that you kind of need if you're going to edit text files and things like that. And so the first thing, first I want to say, if you were here last time and you saw Eric talk, he stole my method of putting interesting facts in. So I didn't want to do that this second time in a row that we would have two speakers in a row that had interesting facts. So I didn't put interesting facts in, but I want you to know I am as interesting as he is. So I felt like I needed to, as I moved to the next topic, I needed to cover that. So the first thing that's really cool is the command palette. You may or may not know what that is, but the command palette is basically everything is just like a keystroke away. So you press like Command-Shift-P, it opens up the command palette and gives you this fuzzy search to search through like all kinds of everything that Atom can do. Anything that it can possibly do, create a new tab, create a new file, rename a file, move a file, all the things that Atom can do are all available from this one little thing. You hit Command-Shift-P, it pops up, it gives you a list of everything that it can do, it shows you what the title of that is, what the shortcut key is if it has that shortcut, a shortcut key, and you can search. So that the top part here is actually a text editor, so if I go to the next slide, you can see I search Git, and the first thing that comes up is like Git blame. So you can just hit Command-Shift-P, pops up this nice little editor, type in Git, hit enter, and it'll show you Git blame in the current file, and you'll be able to see, if you're using version control, you'll be able to see like who edited each line of that file right inside of it, which is kind of cool. And I'll show that plugin later. But the command palette, if you've ever used Sublime Text 2, it's really cool. Atom is very similar to that, but it kind of moves towards more like modern and new things rather than, not that Python's not modern, but it moves more to web technologies. So the next thing is files. So obviously, if you're going to have a text editor, you're going to have to be able to edit text files and actually do things with them. And so there's finding, adding, moving, deleting, all that stuff. It's all built in. It's all good to go. This is an example of, it might look exactly the same as the command palette, but this is actually the file finder tab, basically. And so when you hit Command-T, it brings up this file finder, and it will fuzzy search through all the directories and files in your project and find them. So in this case, I typed app models. I didn't put in a slash. I didn't put in directories or anything like that. I could have just typed pp, mdl. Like I don't need vowels. I don't need anything. Anything that will fuzzy match will come up. And you can see that this has app models user, app models talk, app models star, like all the files that are inside of app models. So really quickly, you can find the file that you want to find. This isn't like new or innovative. This is stuff that most editors already do, but it's in there and it's ready to go, I think is kind of just the point that I wanted to make. So the next thing is search. Obviously, again, search is critical to be able to find things in a project because all of us, what would be great is if it could also like find completely across projects and the history of context of things that I've learned, because I'm like, what was that one thing I did in that one project, and what was that one project? Because I need to do it right now, but I can't remember which folder it was in. It doesn't do that. But it does, within your project, actually find things and stuff like that. And additionally, as I go to the next slide, you can do replace as well. And so it gives you a nice visual idea of like, these are all the files that it found, the term PDF, and if I want to change that to FTP, I can do that, and it gives you like a real nice view of that. And you just press one button and changes them all, saves them, and you're good to go. Another thing that's really cool is multi-selection. And at the end, I'm gonna show like a demo of kind of all this stuff as well, like live, which we know will go great. But multi-selection is really powerful. I first got into this with Sublime, probably. And in Sublime Text 2, they have really great, well, Sublime and Sublime Text 2, they have great multi-selection. So selecting multiple words, multiple cursors, typing, all these kinds of stuff. If you're not quite sure what I'm talking about, you'll see it and you'll be like, oh my gosh, I can't live without that anymore. Snippets, this is another thing that, a lot of editors have, where you can just type in, def and then tab, and it's going to create a new method for you in Ruby, or the same thing in JavaScript, the same thing in any other language that you have and that you know and that you want to use. So obviously those are just kind of some of the things that make it a text editor. So getting around in files, navigating them, and actually creating them, editing them, doing all those kinds of things. It's got all that, it's ready to go. I'm not going to blow you away, it's normal stuff. But the cool thing is, it's web, so it's HTML, CSS, JavaScript again, and you can go in and you can change all that to add anything new that you want for any of these kinds of things. So that is what makes it modern, and that is what makes it a text editor. So now we're going to talk about what makes it hackable, because that's what we probably all care about, is when I run into these little annoyances that I run into with my editor, or I want to speed up a certain process or become more efficient, how do I do those kind of things? Go ahead.
So before you go into that, you mentioned that about the files. The files are both like from a Git repository or from your local hard drive.
Yep, they're from local hard drive. It's all about local. There's Git integration, so if you clone Git repository down locally and you open Atom in that directory, anything you do, you'll actually see, and I'll show this in the demo, you'll see like these lines are added or removed based on the branch I'm in and all that kinds of stuff as well. Does that make sense? Yeah. Cool. So hackable. So pour some U on it. It's kind of like pour some sugar on it, I don't know, or something. I was struggling with this one. I did, however, again, appreciate the Octocat. I feel like I made a good choice. Hackable, he's making like a solution. Anyways, it's hackable to the core, literally. So Atom is completely open source. Every part of it, you can go in, you can see on github.com/atom, and for a second I had a panic moment. I thought I left it in staff mode, and then you guys would see some new feature, and I would not be able to, but I did not, so I did take it out of, we have like a staff mode on github.com, where we get to see new things before you guys do, and for like 2 seconds I thought I saw a staff feature, and I freaked out, but we're good. We're good. We're good. No new features around any of this kind of stuff. We're fine. So it's all there. All the plugins that make up Atom are there. There's, probably, I remember like 5 pages of various, repositories that make up what Atom actually is. And when you download Atom, it comes with most of these by default. Some of them you have to install on your own because they can determine them to not be like core things, but more optional things. But it's literally hackable. You can go here, you don't like something, you can go, you can fix it. You can do the normal GitHub flow if you're used to that, where you fork a project, you make your fix, you submit a pull request back, the Atom team will review it, they'll say this is awesome, they'll merge it, and then your code is right into Atom, and you don't even have to run anything separate or special on yours, it'll just merge in with the next release, which is really cool. So it's entirely hackable, which is an awesome thing. But beyond that, if you don't want to go through all of that work, there's also out of the box, obviously config that you can kind of set up to kind of tweak it to work like you want it to work. Kind of all the normal things. So font family, font size, you probably can't see it from there. My font size is 24. I just like big fonts. They're a little bit probably too big. Most people that come up are like, are you like having problems seeing things? I'm like, no, I just like, it forces me to have smaller lines, to be a little better programmer, be more clear and things like that. So I go with big font size. But anyways, you can do auto indent on paste. So you paste things, it'll automatically indent based on the indentation level you're at when you start pasting. There's configuration settings for all these kinds of things. If you're the kind of person like me that cares about visible characters like tabs versus soft spaces, there's settings for all those kinds of things, and you should care about them. If you're a person that doesn't, then we'll have to have words later. So there's all that kinds of stuff, and there's a ton of config that you can do, and I'm going to talk more about some of the other things that are going on in this view. Some of the cool things, there's this checkbox for exclude VCS, ignored paths. VCS is version control system. So anything that, like, for example, in Git, where SVN is in your SVN ignore or Git ignore file, will just not show up in the repo, which is really nice. So if you ignore log files, you don't have to worry about your searching through log files, stuff like that. So there's little touches like that that are pretty slick. Key bindings. So you'll notice everything I'm showing is basically these tabs right here in the preferences. And so key bindings, you basically get complete control over all the shortcuts. So of the people that are like relatively full-time developers and use an editor, like how many of you guys use, or I'm going to say guys, but I'm meaning it in the general term, how many people use shortcuts? Like, okay, pretty much everybody. And it's the single, like I would say, biggest thing that can change your efficiency level and also give you probably carpal tunnel syndrome faster. But it's really nice to be able to like just hit a key combo and get like a whole new class file with everything filled out that you need, or a whole new method definition, or things like that. Or if you're in a file and you want to create companion test file or spec file, just hit a key combo and bam, it's there. Stuff like that, that's what key bindings are all about. They're about something that would be a longer and more manual process, making it super fast. And so Atom has like a panel where you can basically search through all the key bindings, and all the key bindings are actually scoped to the context that you're in. So if you're in the editor, certain key bindings will work and certain won't. And if you're not in the editor and you're in the search panel or you're in the tree view, all the smartness of the shortcuts is scoped to those things, or can be. It doesn't have to be. There are some things like adding a new file that you just want to be able to do wherever you are. But that's kind of cool. So it can show you all this, so where things are actually going to work in. So you can see right here, the first one is A, that's add a new file. This is the full command for it, and this is the kind of context tree view. And the selector, again, the selector is a CSS selector, because everything in Atom is HTML and everything is CSS. And so all the selectors, how they do that scoping is basically the exact same as how you do CSS inheritance. So that's pretty cool as well, if you're into web technologies. The next thing that you can customize is themes, because everybody wants to make their editor uglier than the default. I kid. So choosing a theme, there's a few that come stock with it. Almost all my screenshots are Unity, which it's order list in the back corner. It's his design. It's dramatically better than the default, so I'm going to link to that later and show you more about it. But if you're on a Mac on a regular basis, it just feels like home. It's like hot chocolate by the fire in the window. It's great. If you don't, just out of the default, you just want to use what Atom has, this is Unity, so just another example. The tabs, everything just feels kind of Mac OS 10-ish. This is the default white theme for Atom. So there's actually a separation of, you can have a different syntax theme than the outside shell theme. So the outside shell theme would be like the tabs, the status bar, scroll bars, all those kinds of things, and then the syntax is the actual code, colors, and things like that. So those can be different. So you can have light on the outside, dark on the inside, or vice versa, and all that kinds of stuff. This is the light theme with the light syntax theme, and the next one is the dark theme with the dark syntax theme. So you could obviously mix and match them and make them however you want, because Atom is all about being hackable. So that's kind of cool. You can make your own themes. It's really easy. It's literally just like creating a directory and then putting like a style sheet file inside of it, and then starting to style it. Certain selectors, certain colors, certain fonts, whatever you want to do, and it's actually really not that hard, and the only hard part is actually making it look good, which probably none of us can really do anyways, so I would probably just stick with Unity or whatever. Then the next thing that makes it super, this is basically plugins. So we say packages because, again, it's built on Node. Node I think calls them packages, and so it uses the same vernacular for that reason, but it's basically how you extend or modify the current functionality of Atom through new code. So you can create a new package there's a package generator. So literally you can use the command palette, which I showed at the beginning, Command-Shift-P, you can type in create package or like CRT-PCK if you want to test how good the fuzzy search is. And it'll bring up, create a new package, hit a button, it creates the directory, adds everything you need to make that plugin in there, and then you just start actually filling in the guts that add the new behavior or the new styles or various things like that, which is really cool. There's also a style guide that's built into Atom, and so the style guide is basically like, here's everything that by default is kind of included in Atom, and you can test it against your theme to see if you have styled all the elements that are a part of Atom. So you don't forget to style the search, or you don't forget to style the command palette, or things like that. So that's also really cool. Packages is a tab in settings as well. This says all my packages are up to date because I've updated them, but it actually automatically has checking of your packages that are out of date. And when that happens, there's a tiny little squirrel that shows up down here, which unfortunately I did not get a screenshot of. Everybody loves squirrels. But you click that squirrel and it goes right in there, shows you which packages need to be updated. You can update them individually, or you can just update all at once, which is typically what I do. And it's just click the button and you're done. You don't have to think about it again, which is nice. A lot of editors do that. Some of them you have to git clone, or SVN checkout in certain places. It's just nice to have it all through the UI. So that's kind of how that stuff all works. And now my favorite picture ever. Students tips. I first used this at the GitHub as a summit every year, and I first used it there. And it was more around like, there's a Boy Scout motto that's leave every camp better than you arrived at it, basically. And so this is actually from Wikipedia, the Boy Scout founder, with my face superimposed as I was flying to Sanford or Whistler, Canada, or something. I broke out my Photoshop skills and put my own face on it. And I mean, I'm a back-end programmer, so I'm feeling pretty good about this. I remember Steve in the back, was sitting right across the aisle from me, and I was like, check it out. And he's like, well, what if you kind of like, and I was like, nope. I've already spent like 2 hours on this, I'm done. Not happening. So these are just some of the plugins and packages and themes that I like. The first one obviously is Unity. That's the look and feel. It just makes it feel like Mac OS 10. It works with Yosemite or the one before Yosemite, which I don't remember. Mavericks, yeah. I'm too cool. Once the new thing comes out, I'm on it, and I have no idea. The rest is dead to me. So Unity is really great. I like that a lot. Git blame is a really cool one. This is basically like when you're in any file, you can, if it's version controlled, the project that you're opening is version controlled, which it just checks is does the root of the project that I'm in have a .git folder or a .svn or whatever that is supported. It will actually automatically do the git blame on that file and show all the lines beside it, which is kind of cool. So in this example, the PDF uploader, which is in SpeakerDeck, you can see each person who modified each line. And this is a Git feature. It's in Git, so it's not like it's not innovative or new or anything like that. It's just nice to have it right inside your editor. And all I do to see this is Control V. And I could also, Control V is like open up Git blame. It's a shortcut, which the plugin adds. And if I want to do the full thing, I can go to the command palette, Command-Shift-P, open up the command palette, and I can type in Git blame, and it'll pop this open as well. And then these were the nicest thing is all these Git SHAs over here that reference the commit where that line was changed are clickable, and they go right to github.com. And so on github.com, you can see that and see the history and all those kinds of things. So I actually use this plugin all the time because I'm constantly working on legacy code. And literally just the other day, I deleted a method from 2010 that was written by Defunct, our CEO, who doesn't really code a whole lot anymore. So I'm constantly in old stuff, so Git blame is like my friend, because I need to figure out who I need to ask for context on why this crazy thing was done. I'm not saying that Defunct would have done anything crazy, but what was the question?
You mentioned that the hash is all linked to github.com. What if it's not hosted there? Does it do anything?
Do people do that? I'm just kidding.
Well, if your source code's not public, for example.
Yep. So what it does is there's actually a feature where you can say if we detect that this is not a github.com origin source, basically in the Git repo, then you can set your own custom template to say use this URL instead, based on directory name, SHA, and a couple other things that you can pass in. So. Basically, if it doesn't detect GitHub, it'll just use that. So if you have an enterprise install or Stash or Bitbucket or whatever, it'll just use that as a backup. And the other thing you can just fork it. You can fork it, make your own, and just change the URL from github.com to whatever, and make it work with whatever you need to, which is really nice. So, but this out of the box does support like a good custom template for non-GitHub stuff. So, and then the other thing that's really nice, back in the day I used to blog a lot, and I'd write Markdown and textile and stuff like that locally and want previews and things. And so the Markdown preview is really nice. These days, I'm kind of getting terrible at writing on a consistent basis online, because I do a lot of writing for my job, but this is a really cool feature. So you can just go to the command palette, hit Markdown Preview, and it'll pop open, this shows kind of the side-by-side pane effect. And this is really cool in full screen mode on like a big display. So you can open up your big cinema display or big Dell monitor, and you can go full screen on the Markdown file that you're looking at, hit Markdown Preview, and then you have full screen live update rendering of the Markdown text that you have over on the other tab. So it's kind of a neat way to do things. If you do a lot of Markdown, or I'm sure there's probably like a textile or other simple text formatting things that aim to make HTML probably also exist. So that one's kind of cool. And that was actually the README for Speaker Deck. Just a little pro tip there. And then this one I actually use a lot as well, again, because I'm constantly trying to figure out who I can blame for the code that I'm looking at. This is open on GitHub, and it has a couple of different ways to use it, but you can do Alt-G and then O, and that will open the exact line that you're on GitHub, or you can do Alt-G and then V, and it'll open up the blame at the exact line that you're on in GitHub, and stuff like that. And I have no idea if it works with other things, because this one I didn't look on, but it'd be easy enough to hack. So this one's really cool. Now it's demo time. Are there any questions before I go to the demo? Go ahead.
So you say like everything is DOM based.
Yes.
Does that mean like every time you save, it sort of takes whatever information's in the DOM and serializes it? So if you make a change to the text in the actual DOM, that will get saved when you save the file?
Have you seen, I don't know how much I can answer this correctly, but I'm just going to make some things up a little bit. We've got a new thing coming out called Shadow DOM. That basically, have you seen Facebook's React?
A little React. I've heard of it.
Yeah, it's basically like they create these DOM fragments in memory, and they alter those, and then they only paint them or put them in the actual DOM at certain points, so that it's a lot faster. And for a little while, they started to switch to React style for making the DOM stuff more performant. Now they've got a new thing coming out that they're calling Shadow DOM, and I don't know if it's just a fancy way of saying React, or if it's a new thing, or what it is, but the idea is basically creating fragments using document.createFragment in memory, and then putting it in at the time when it makes sense, rather than updating the DOM all the time. Because that's really the problem with almost all editors that are web-based, is performance. And so Atom does a lot of tricks like that to make things a lot more faster. So the other thing that it does is when you're looking at code, it's actually just scanning in parts of the file based on where you're at in the viewport.
Gotcha.
So that it doesn't have to open up, huge files and stuff like that. So Steve could probably answer some of that too.
The answer is if you use the plugin APIs to modify anything on save, it'll be fine.
Gotcha.
If you do hacky shit, so modify weird DOM nodes here and there, you're probably not guaranteed to have anything work properly. But as we approach 1.0 on Atom, the API is going to be relatively frozen, so you just follow the API protocols to modify whatever you want. It's really flexible, and if you follow those APIs, when the user hits Command S, it'll be fine.
Cool. Was there a question in the back too?
Yeah, I'm thinking that.
Oh, okay. Okay, so demo. So I've got it on Mirror, and I've now got Atom open. So what I was thinking I would do is literally just go through some of the stuff and show you how it works. So the first thing was the native web, and you can see I literally have a JavaScript console. It's probably hard to see down there, but you might be able to see it better over there.
Hit the magnifying glass.
Magnifying glass? Yes.
Yeah.
Where's the magnifying glass? There it is. So magnifying glass, you can see these are all just DOM elements. Span.source.ruby.rails 260 by 224. Entity.name.function.ruby. Class.ruby. Tabs. They're HTML. Everything is HTML. This is the web inspector. I can click something, it goes right to the element in the DOM. You You see the styles on computed styles. You can tweak things. jQuery's in here, underscores in here. There's all. It's literally just a web. That was the coolest thing to me. There's some kind of a bridge between native and this that they made, but everything else is just web technologies. So there's like is it Cocoa or some kind of Objective-C bridge, I think, in order to get to a few things. Maybe that was early.
Well, that was early. So now Atom is built off of an open source library called Atom Shell, which is also open source. So, for example, if you were making a web technology application that you wanted to be a downloadable application that you could deploy on Mac and Windows and Linux, whatever, you could use Atom Shell and put some JavaScript and HTML in the app portion of that, and it would be and then package that up, and you could make it a downloadable application that would run and work just like Atom does. So Atom is built on Atom Shell, and on top of that, there's a bunch of libraries and various things that Atom uses to become what it is. But Atom Shell is the root, and then you have a bunch of stuff on top of it.
And what it is self-aware. No, I'm just kidding.
If I remember correctly, Atom Shell is an alternative to using Node WebKit, right?
Yeah, it's the same thing as like there were lots of previous ideas about it. Like there were lots of like, oh, use WebTech and you can download and make a installable application, right? There was, I'm trying to remember back in the day.
Yeah, I'm like in a Titanium.
Yeah, Titanium was one thing, but Atom Shell it's a similar thing. It uses Chromium in a downloadable application that is OS independent.
Yeah.
So if you follow some certain protocols, you can write HTML, JavaScript, CSS code, and make a downloadable application to Mac OS, Windows, and Linux with very little work.
One of the really cool things actually is sometimes you'll actually see some of the key bindings in the selectors are like .darwin .other things or like Windows .other things. So it actually adds selectors to the DOM based on the platform you're using. So plugins can modify behavior based on the platform as well. So there's some weird stuff like that you'll actually see when you get in. So this is the command palette that I was going to talk about. So I just typed Command-Shift-P all at once, and it brings this up, and you can see like as I type, it starts figuring things. I could just be like blame or BLME, whatever, and it does. Again, that's just showing the fuzzy search nature of it. But from here, you can do pretty much anything. So I can say like move up, and literally, if I wanted to, I'd do that, and now I moved up one line. I'm on grid. And I can be like move up. This is way faster than hitting the up arrow. But it's just to demonstrate that like it's all built on these fundamental building blocks of like behaviors and stuff like that, and then everything that happens inside is a shortcut. So there's literally a shortcut somewhere that says when you're in the editor area, which is this, area where all the text is, and someone presses up, trigger, move up a line. And so that's kind of how everything works. It's all built on those fundamental things, which is kind of cool. So that's a really cool thing. The command palette has all kinds of stuff inside of it. Files, there's a tree view. So I'm probably just going to keep hitting shortcuts and stuff. Don't worry about all that. But if I'm in here and I'm like, oh, I want to make a new file, I just hit A, and it says, where would you like the new file to be? And I can say foo / and that would create a directory, or I can say like var.html, and that will create the file. And just like that, I have a new file, and I'm in there, and you can see that it is in foo, and there's a var.html. I can type in whatever I want, save it, and all that kinds of stuff. You can right-click on files, search in directory, add a file folder, rename, all the normal things you can do, copy the full path, open it in Finder, open it in a new window, everything that is normal. If I go back to the command palette, I can say like split pane, let's do like down. And now this pane is down here. And I can close it in the top one, and I've got two independent panes that are totally different, which is kind of cool. Yeah, question?
Yeah, well, I was just going to point out that because you added that file, you have the icon on the right side of the tree view.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, so the Git integration, you see this little plus sign right here? That's the Git integration. That's saying this is an added file that is not staged at all inside of Git. So additionally, you'll see the orange dots here. That inside of those, that means I've edited those lines, and those are unstaged in Git edited things, because this is a Git repository locally on my machine. So that was, thank you, sir, for that kind note. So that's kind of cool. Some of the really cool stuff, if I get rid of this, I'm not going to get too far ahead of myself. I almost did. You can delete all that kinds of stuff. So if I go to foo and I just hit delete and then move the trash, it's gone. All that kinds of stuff still works and it's really normal. You can search, so I can search like PDF, and just like that, I mean, super fast. Again, this used to be like intensely slow. Even on GitHub/GitHub, our repository that runs GitHub.com and enterprise, it is like, I mean, maybe a second or two to search through like thousands and thousands and thousands of files. It's relatively quick. I'm not going to say it's the fastest search ever, but it's fast enough. You can also always directory limit your searches to make it a little bit quicker as well. And you can see, like, as I start to type in here, it starts to show that it's like going to replace them with that. And so that's kind of cool. You can do all the normal searches that you can do, like regex or match case, all that kinds of stuff. You can find, that was project search. This is like finding in a current buffer or current tab. You could say like, Grim, and if I hit enter, it shows you all the occurrences of Grim. And if I do like case sensitive, then it'll find them, but not this capitalized one. Things like that, which are really cool. So again, it's just all normal stuff, but there's keyboard shortcuts kind of for everything. So that's kind of searching. Now this is the part that like gets me excited. This is multi-selection, and so is anyone familiar with this? Like, has anyone used Sublime or anything like that? A few people. Okay. So when I started using Sublime and I started doing this text stuff, like I occasionally in my development career I've had giggle snort moments, and it was a giggle snort moment for me. Like, it was just really neat to be able to like be in some file and like. This is probably not a big thing for like people who grew up on IDEs and like full development environments, but like I pretty much grew up in the Unix like simple files, simple editors, stuff like that mode. TextMate back in the day, Sublime Text 2. Before that, probably like Dreamweaver. I'm gonna admit it, but and so anyways, there's some cool stuff. So this, I selected the word. You can see that it's kind of selected. I'm just gonna hit Command D only with one hand. One hand is off to this. I will even put it in my back pocket. But you can do Command D, and it'll just keep selecting all the occurrences of Grim everywhere. And I can be like, I really don't want it to be named Grim. I want it to be named Happy, and all of them, like right there, just turned to Happy. But you can just select a few, select a bunch. Again, this isn't like a huge thing until you start using it like daily. You integrate it into your workflow, and it can make renaming things really fast. If you use a full IDE and you have like automatic refactoring and you're in a statically typed language, I'm really happy for you. If you work in dynamic languages, you're gonna enjoy this. So that's really cool. You can additionally, like, I can move the cursor like all left and right to move to the beginning and the end of the word. And it's doing that for every single cursor instance that's in here. So I can be like blah 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 blah, and then go to the end, blah 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 blah, then go to the middle and be like blah 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 blah. So that's pretty powerful and nice. And then when you Command Z, it does them each in the instance that you did that, which is also really nice.
You can also option click.
Yep. So thank you for getting ahead of me. You can. I'm not going to do that one next, just because it was going to be next. You can select multiple lines like this. So Command Shift up and down. So I'm doing up and down, getting more, and I can just put a whole bunch of stuff in there right at the beginning. So there's some cool stuff like that. If you want, you can. There's another thing we have. It's called Option Click, which you've probably never heard of like 2 seconds ago. You can literally just hold Option and click anywhere. It's not actually Option; it's Command. He got it wrong. We should feel better. You can just kind of click anywhere you want, make as many of these little cursors as you want, and just start typing in there all over the place. So if you've got like random places inside of your document that you want to update, you can just Command click in all those places and just start typing. And the same rules apply. You can shoot to the beginning, add more, shoot to the end, stick with the cues, anything you want to do, Command Z, they go back. It's really cool. Like, again, if you're doing dynamic languages and you're doing like kind of Unix-based development where you have like a text editor open and a terminal open, it saves you a lot of time. So that's really cool. What else? Snippets. So snippets are cool. They're all language and scope dependent. So for example, in Ruby, I want to make a new method that's def. I can just hit def, enter, and it automatically makes the completing end for the def. And I can start typing method, name, blah. Let's just stick with blah. And I can hit tab again, and I'm right into the method definition. I can do whatever I want to do. So that's kind of cool. You'll see this little thing popping up occasionally as I type. that basically is auto-completing based on the buffer that I'm in, all the things that I might want to type. So other variable names, other class names, things like that. And that's also kind of convenient. Let's see, what else can I show? Config, so command, go ahead.
Can you access the console, the actual file system from within? The only reason I'm asking that is because quite a few are actually coding on a Chromebook where the file system is not.
I would imagine it wouldn't install or wouldn't work on a Chromebook because it would actually need file system access. I don't know.
It'd probably have to at least be built for Chrome OS.
There is a console plugin, but it's not like it uses a JavaScript bridge to the console to do stuff, so it's not like perfect.
Yeah.
But it's close enough. So if you wanted to like create a pane that was like the console, to do like terminal commands and then go back and forth. I feel like there is a plugin to do that.
Yeah, but
it's a bridge. It's not like a direct access to the terminal.
Yeah, there was a plugin, a terminal plugin that someone started for just so you could literally run bash commands and whatever you wanted to. That I think it kind of fizzled out because there was other priorities, but I would imagine at some point it'll come back. But on a Chromebook would be a separate.
Yeah, I'm wondering how this would work on a Chromebook.
Yeah, I don't. It doesn't seem like it
If you were
would.
doing this on a Chromebook,
file.
if you're going to do this on a Chromebook, you want to be able to compile and run. And most people doing that kind of thing are running like the ch root hacks and stuff like that to install.
That's what you have to do.
What is it, Kubuntu or whatever they?
Yeah, you'd have to probably hack it in order to get it compiled and installed and all that kind of stuff.
Because you want to run an actual runtime.
Just curious.
Once you got it installed, you could make your. If you had another computer, you could make your own plugin that would do all like cloud-based editing. Like so, it would load file. Like we actually have some plugins that show like kind of the future, like that we've toyed around with that aren't released or anything like that. But like opening a gist in Atom and then editing it, saving it, and that actually makes an HTTP call to save it and all that kind of stuff. That stuff is on our brains. It's just not there yet because you kind of realize like this stuff is awesome, it's the future, but if you can't do the basic stuff, nobody cares. So we kind of went back to the drawing board there and spent a lot more time on making all the basic stuff really good and really fast. But I can't tell you the really cool feature that is, but there's a really cool feature coming down the road as well. And that's the really cool feature that is coming down the road is the reason we built the editor. But you have to do all the other boring stuff first. So yeah, there's definitely some cool stuff. Good question. Okay, so what was I going to show next? Config. So this is command comma, so it's just opening up the preferences. I'll hurry up too. I don't even know where I'm at time-wise, but probably at the end. So there's all these settings. You can do auto indent, font sizes, invisibles, all those kinds of stuff. Show indent guides, soft wrapping, everything you would imagine. This is the shadow down thing I was talking about. Like with they kind of add beta things in beforehand, which is kind of cool, and allow you to test those if you want to be a guinea pig. And if you don't, then you just leave those unchecked, and then eventually they just become the default new editor when they're comfortable with that. Key bindings, I can be in here and I can be like file, and it just shows me everything related to files. This is basically the command palette with a different view, which is kind of nice. There's actually one plugin that its only job is key binding resolver, and so if you're in a certain context, you can open this plugin, type a key command, and it will show you everything that resolves and which one it chooses based on the CSS kind of inheritance of the selector, which is also kind of cool. When you get in a jam and you're like, why does it keep doing the wrong shortcut? Well, it's because there's another shortcut that has better precedence for some reason. When you get plugins and you start mixing all those worlds together, you'll run into some of that weird stuff. Packages, I'm not on the internet, so I can't show you some of it, but it will show you like the available updates, all that stuff. You can install them just by typing in like git, hit enter, it'll show you all the git related ones. You can also just go to atom.io, the website, and it'll show all the packages. You can search and stuff there. We have feature packages that get updated every once in a while as well, and themes. I mentioned that it came with Atom Dark and Light. Unity is really easy to install. You just go to the packages, type in Unity, hit enter, install, and then pick it on the themes tab, and you have a much prettier version of Atom. Solarized Dark is the one that I use for syntax and like. That's kind of how that stuff works. And then, oh, there's this cool thing. Because it's actually a browser window, you can literally just reload it. So if you get some weird JavaScript error that pops up when you're doing plugin development, you can just be like, start over.
Does it remember your edits? Or
Yes.
does it?
Yes.
It does.
So it has a serialization framework inside of it for all plugins, and you can say whenever a tab is about to be unloaded, serialize my data structures, and then when they are loaded, unserialize them, and however you want to do that. So that stuff, it should all work, and plugins can make that stuff work as well. So if I close this and I reopen Atom, it'll be the same width and height inside of the speaker deck directory. It'll be the same width and height and have the same tabs open for speaker deck and stuff like that. So.
There's also the dev mode. So
Yep.
if you're writing plugins or themes, you can open Atom in dev mode. So
I thought it was like,
yeah, there's open dev.
yeah, it's like
There's just
open
one out there.
dev mode or something.
You can also, from the command line tools, you can do atom-d dot, that opens it in dev mode. And if it's in dev mode, it's going to reload the CSS files or any theme automatically, or any plugins automatically anytime it's saved. So it'll like reload itself every time you change the files.
Makes it a lot faster to develop.
Yeah, a lot faster to work on plugins and themes and stuff.
And you can write tests.
Yes.
Almost all the core packages have tests for everything. And you can like hit a key combo and type run test, and it'll run all the tests for core Atom, which is also really cool. And then you can actually create a package. That was the other thing that like I mentioned,
yeah.
Package generator, create package, I hit enter, and I make a plugin just like that. I think that's like probably everything we're showing, because like if I was going to show this, like open on GitHub, it doesn't work because I'm not on the internet. But it actually, you can see it goes to the URL and even includes the line number and stuff like that. So all that stuff works. Git blame, if I hit Control B, you can see that it's showing all the people that have edited the various lines in this file.
Yeah.
Which is kind
And
of cool.
all the Atom packages again are open source. So like if you want to make something and there's something that's sort of similar, like not near it, but like kind of close, like you can just go look at the source on GitHub or wherever repo it's in and see how they're doing certain stuff. Atom.io will show you all the documentation and stuff. It's really interesting.
Any questions? I'm done.